What's going on, everyone? We're back here at Pastime Tattoo. I'm Ben Verhoek, and you're watching Tattooing with Ben. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about my tattoo journey, from my very early beginnings all the way up until now, and everything in between. You'll learn about how I got into tattooing, my apprenticeship, how I started out, all that shit. So I'm not going to waste any time. Let's just get right into it. So like 2007 and before, I was playing in a bunch of hardcore bands. I was a drummer. We would tour all over the country and in Europe and Mexico and Puerto Rico and Canada, all over the place. A lot of places that we stayed at on the road just so happened to be tattooers' houses. Before that, I've been tattooed before. I already was like hanging out in some tattoo shops here and there. For whatever reason, it never really clicked for me to like think to maybe get into tattooing at that point. And I remember one time it was in somewhere in North Carolina. We were staying at a tattooer's house, and I wish I remembered the name of the guy or the shop he was at, but unfortunately I don't. He was just talking about how much he loves his job and how cool it is to be a tattooer because you got so much freedom. You could wear whatever clothes you want. You don't have to wear a uniform. You could listen to whatever music you want. You get to draw on people all day. The more I was listening to it, the more I was like, I've been getting tattooed. I love the tattoo culture. I've hung out in tattoo shops. I've been drawing and painting and stuff since I was a kid. That's when it clicked with me, like, this is what I want to do with my life. Up until then, I had no direction with my life. I know I didn't want to do college. I know the music thing wasn't sustainable long term, and I really had no clue what I was going to do with the rest of my life up until that point. And that's when I had this epiphany where like, all right, that's what I need to do. Soon after that, I came home from tour. I bought some shitty ass eBay kit, and that's where I started my tattoo journey. Like I said, I came home from tour right around 2008. I was staying at my friend Andrew's house. I bought a shitty ass made in China tattoo kit. I definitely don't recommend that, and I didn't know any better, so that's just what I did. I remember the day it came in the mail, I was opening it up. Andrew's mom was right there, checking out all the stuff. Oh, here's some needles, here's some shitty inks, here's some tubes, da-da-da-da. And after we took everything out of the box, Andrew's mom was like, okay, I'm ready. And I'm like, ready for what? She's like, just give me my tattoo right here, right now. And I'm like, okay. So that's when I did my first tattoo. And that's what started it all. From there, I just kind of started fucking up a lot of my neighborhood friends. A lot of them were the kind of people that already had like real shitty tattoos anyway. They didn't really have money to go to a shop to get tattooed. They got a lot of prison tattoos. They weren't really tripping about getting a tattoo from someone who was just starting out. It was a good opportunity for me to start learning, or so I thought. It's definitely not the right way to do things, and I didn't know at the time, but I know now. But yeah, I started fucking up a lot of my friends, doing real shitty tattoos on them because I didn't know what I was doing. It didn't take me too long before I realized like, okay, I need to get an apprenticeship. I need to learn how to do this shit properly. Otherwise, I'm going to be going nowhere. Around this time, I got a apprenticeship at a shop in Richmond, California. It was kind of a shithole. It was owned by someone who's not a tattooer. They were like selling clothes. It was like a boutique, and then she must have seen some tattoo TV shows and decided, oh, I want to make money off tattooers. So she opened up a shop in her clothing shop and had a bunch of shitty Craigslist tattooers, really bad tattooers. I got hired as an apprentice. Now, why I do these little air quotes is because it wasn't a real apprenticeship. I got kind of duped into working there thinking it was an apprenticeship, but none of the artists were teaching me anything. And that was probably a good thing because they were all pretty bad. I was just kind of being used for free labor. So as much as that was shitty, the one good thing I could see coming from that is it was shop experience, something that I never had before. But I also learned a lot about what a tattoo shop should not be like. Very valuable information. As shitty as this shop was, a lot of tattooers that I'm friends with now who are really good tattooers, they actually got their starts at this shitty shop too, and we didn't find out about that until much later in our careers. So it's kind of funny. So eventually I realized that was not the place for me. I left there and I tried to find another apprenticeship, and I got doors slammed in my face everywhere I went. I had a real shitty scratcher portfolio. I just did another thing that was really bad and just continued to fuck up my friends tattooing out of the house. Definitely something I'm not proud of. Again, I didn't know any better. I was trying to get an apprenticeship. It just wasn't happening. There I was, tattooing out of the house, trying to learn things on my own, and just fucking a lot of people up along the way. So after a few years of fucking people up while looking for an apprenticeship, I finally landed an apprenticeship that was a real apprenticeship. And because I spent so much time scratching out of my house and doing things the absolute wrong way, it kind of slowed my growth because I had to unlearn all the shitty habits that I had as a scratcher and a house tattooer, kitchen magician, whatever you want to call it, and relearn the proper way to do things. Ultimately, that kind of stunted my growth, because if I would have started out the proper way and had an apprenticeship, I would have been able to learn the proper way right out the gate and been able to grow artistically a lot quicker. After about a year of apprenticing, I graduated and became a regular tattooer. You know, spent some more time at the shop I was apprenticing at. The shop I was apprenticing at in Oakland, California was more of a private studio, so it didn't really have a whole lot of walk-ins. So the people I were tattooing was just my clientele, which, being so young in the game, I didn't really have too much clientele. So I wasn't able to grow at a rapid enough rate because I didn't have a constant stream of people to tattoo, being at a private studio kind of setting. So eventually I started looking to get into a street shop that has walk-ins so I could kind of get a lot more tattooing under my belt, more different styles, you know, get my reps in, pay my dues, grow as an artist. I did a couple shops here and there. Some of them were better than others, but a lot of them kind of just didn't seem like my forever home, my home base. One of them was more centered around piercing, and the tattooing was kind of secondary, and it was kind of set up to look more like a dental office. Wasn't exactly the greatest vibe. I got some walk-ins. It didn't take too long before I realized it wasn't for me. And then I got into another shop that was also owned by a non-tattooer. Maybe you're recognizing a theme here. The owner of that shop just got the shop in a divorce, and she knew absolutely nothing about tattooing. I show up and there's no artwork on the walls. She doesn't know a damn thing about tattooing. That wasn't too great, but the good thing about that was she was never around. So I kind of got to do whatever I want, run the shop however I want, put whatever artwork on the walls that I want, and it was good for a little while. But eventually that soured and I looked elsewhere. Then I landed in a very popular, very busy shop that I was actually kind of intimidated to get into, just because I thought my skills weren't up to par as everyone else's there. Nevertheless, I took the opportunity because I knew it was a great place for me to grow artistically, and it was. It was busy enough to where I could get enough walk-ins and build my clientele base and get enough reps in to where I actually started doing some halfway decent tattoos. And the people that were working there with me, they were really good, especially more at like black and gray realism kind of stuff. So even though that wasn't really what I was trying to specialize in, I learned a lot about that and learned how to do that pretty well. It was just another skill set that I was able to keep under my belt. Around this time is when I started guest spotting for the first time, and I went to go guest spot in Arizona. I used to always go out to Arizona for baseball spring training. I'd go watch the Oakland A's play out in Arizona, and I knew that Scottsdale, Old Town Scottsdale specifically, was like the hub where everyone after all the baseball games would go to the nightclubs, to the restaurants. It was busy as fuck. I figured if I was gonna go guest spot out there, Old Town Scottsdale would be the place that I would be pretty much guaranteed to make some money. I guest spotted out there, had a great time. I got offered a job out there, and I wasn't really looking to move or anything, but I also didn't have anything holding me back. So I was talking with my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, and I was like, you know what? We got offered to move out to Arizona and work at a really busy shop. Fuck it, why not? Let's just do it. And I moved out there, worked at that shop, met a lot of some of my best tattoo friends that I'm still friends with today, and it was a really cool experience for me. I was able to hone my skills a lot more. I was able to work with people who are more into traditional style tattooing and learned a lot through them. It was a really good experience. While I was out in Arizona, I got my girl pregnant. It was wonderful, wonderful news. It was planned. It was just awesome. With the news of my girlfriend being pregnant, we kind of made a tough decision that as much as Arizona was awesome and we loved it very much and it was working out, we really wanted to be able to raise our child back at home around family. So we ended up moving back to the Bay Area, and I went back to the shop that I was at, the busy one, before I left to Arizona. I worked there for, I don't know, maybe a year or two more, and then the next chapter rolled around. Here's where it gets kind of cool. The shitty shop that I was at a few years back that was owned by the lady who got the shop in a divorce ended up selling that shop to a friend of mine. That shop turned into a really cool traditional shop. I ended up going back to that shop, but the shop that it turned out to be once my friend owned it. Even though it was a shop that I worked at before, it was also kind of a totally different shop because it was owned by a tattooer that was all about traditional style, and the whole shop was a traditional themed shop, flash all over the walls, like-minded individuals. That definitely seemed like it was going to be my home for a very long time, and it was. I feel like this was the shop that I actually really got to hone in on my traditional style, really kind of find my voice, I guess you could say. Really kind of came into my own. I started painting a lot more flash. I kind of started developing my own style, growing my fan base who came to me for my style, which is ideally what I was looking to do. Around this time, I was not ready to open up a tattoo shop. I wasn't looking to open up a tattoo shop. It was not even on my radar at all. But I would always look at listings of like commercial buildings just to kind of see what the market was like, how much these things would cost, and just playing fantasy in my head of like, oh, that building looks cool. And then I found one listing that was absolutely perfect. It was in my hometown where I have all kinds of roots, connections, and relationships. And it was on the busiest street in the city. And it was the perfect size, it was the perfect price. Even though I didn't feel like I was ready to open a shop or it was like my time to open a shop, this place was too good to pass up, so I kind of just went for it. Around the same time, my friend Nate had a falling out with the shop he was at and was kind of in limbo as far as what shop he was going to go into. You know, I kind of talked to him about it, and basically me and him both went in together as owners, opening the shop that is now Pastime Tattoo. So that was in 2018. We opened up our shop. It was really small, but it was perfect for us. It just started out as me and Nate. And then as the days went on, our friend Bill came. We knew Bill from a really long time through the hardcore scene. He was a killer tattooer and he joined us too. Shortly after that, our friend Brandon came and joined us. This really small tattoo shop that was perfect for the two of us turned into a really cramped space for the four of us. And, you know, it was getting kind of tight and we still made it work. You know what I mean? We still made it work for what it was. So as we know what happened in this year, COVID-19, pandemic, everything shut down. Everything came to a standstill, including our shop. And while we were shut down and not able to legally work, the business that was next to us was like a much larger space. They went out of business and left. We took over the vacancy. It was kind of a big risk because it was a lot more expensive than where we were at, but it was also a lot bigger. We were pretty much growing out of our old space, so we just took the risk. We were closed anyways, so because of the pandemic, while we were closed and not able to work, we just moved into the new spot, which was right next door to the old spot, build out the new shop. And once the shop was done, we were still not legally allowed to open, but we had paper over the windows because we were doing construction, building the shop. And once the construction was done, we just left the paper on the windows and took our clients that we trusted, and we're just really careful about it. After 11 months, we were finally able to legally open. My God, the floodgates opened. Holy shit. You could tell everybody was just ready to get tattooed. They were sick of sitting at home for all that time during the shutdown. It seemed like everyone was realizing they were taking things like getting tattooed for granted. Fast forward to today, we just had our 5-year anniversary. We got a large crew of awesome tattooers. Not to toot my own horn, but our shop is pretty popular and held in a high regard in the community out here. We're just working really hard day after day to try to better ourselves, better the shop's name, and just keep on grinding. And this journey of mine was really long and really hard, and it's definitely not the way I would suggest people do it, especially fucking people up out of your house. Definitely not the way to do it. Because I was able to start out that way and have an apprenticeship, I could see both sides and experience both sides of like tattooing out of a house and doing a proper apprenticeship, and that helped me understand how important a real apprenticeship is. Anyways, if you want, you can check out this video. Should be pretty cool. Thanks for watching. Let's do this again sometime.